You ever get the feeling that life's about to knock you sideways, but you don't know which way it's coming from? That was me, the day two men in black tactical uniforms pounded on my father's old cabin door like they owned not just the place but the whole world around it. Now, I didn't have any neighbors, 40 acres of woods and creek, not a single porch light for miles, but here they were standing like they had the deed to the dirt under their boots, barking, "Open up. This is security from Serenity Peak Estates. You're in violation." That's when I knew something was off. You don't get that kind of knock unless someone thinks you're about to roll over, and if they did, well, they were in for a surprise. I cracked the door just wide enough so they could see me, but not enough for them to push through calm as you please, asking what this was about. The taller guy jabbed a thumb toward the creek, talking about unauthorized construction and telling me I needed to vacate. I let my jacket slip open, showing the gold star clipped to my belt. Real badge, not some knockoff. "Sheriff O'Connell, Stone Creek County." I said nice and steady. You could see the color drain from the first guy's face, and his partner stopped fingering his own sidearm. "Stay right there," I told them, voice going ice cold, the kind of voice that's ended more than one bar fight before it started. But instead of panicking, they just nodded at each other, turned on their heels, and walked back to their unmarked SUV, like nothing in the world could rattle them. That's when things really got interesting, because you see, nobody gets sent out here for a half-busted fishing dock unless there's a bigger play in motion. Let me back up a sec, because how I ended up facing down two fake rent-a-cops with god complexes is a hell of a story on its own. It started about 4 months before, right after I buried my dad. He'd been tough as nails, made it longer than the doctor said he would, but when your time comes, it comes. I tried to keep busy as sheriff paperwork, politics, the same tragedies you can't unsee, but the city felt like it was closing in on me. So weekends I'd head out to Dad's cabin, sleep under a patchwork of memories, try to fix up his old dock down by the creek. The place was falling apart, but working on it made me feel close to him, like I was patching up both of us, plank by plank. That's when the first sign showed up, a laminated note nailed to a tree. Professionally printed too, saying I wasn't authorized to build structures and I had to cease immediately. No signature, just some company logo. I laughed, tossed it in the fire. There was no HOA out here. Nobody but deer and the occasional fox. A week later, I come back and find the dock wrapped in yellow tape, handwritten "Community Enforcement, do not enter." Now, it wasn't just irritating, it was harassment. I took the tape down, figured it'd blow over, but then came the environmental complaint filed anonymously through the county office I run. Said my dock was causing soil erosion. Total crap, but I had to send my own inspector out just to keep things by the book. They were trying to use my own office against me. That night I sat on the porch with Dad's old shotgun, not scared, just waiting. And sure enough, that's when those two goons came knocking. After they left, I stood on that porch a long time watching the taillights disappear, knowing this wasn't about a dock anymore. Someone wanted my land, and they just figured out I wasn't the kind of man you could bully off his property. But the way those guys acted, calm, methodical, told me they worked for someone who didn't make a lot of mistakes. My first call was to Jenna Martinez, my deputy tech genius, the only person I trust when things get strange. Told her everything, asked her to dig into Aegis Strategic Solutions, the name the security guys gave me. She's sharp, picked up the thread, quick, registered to a shell corporation in Delaware, then Wyoming, dead ends all the way down. But the money, she said, it all traced back to one man, Julian Vance, president of Serenity Peak Estates. Now, you've never met a guy like Vance unless you've been unlucky or maybe just stubborn. Think polished custom suit, cold eyes, politician smile. I drove through the iron gates of Serenity Peak like I was entering a whole other planet. Lawns trimmed to within an inch of their lives, security cameras everywhere, not a kid or dog in sight. Vance met me at his door. Warm handshake, crocodile grin, inviting me into his glass-walled office with a view that made you forget you were ever just regular folk. I told him his men trespassed, threatened me on my own property. He played shocked, apologized, called his guys overzealous. But you could see he was just sizing me up. He spun it like I was overreacting, talking about property lines and community standards. I wasn't having it. This isn't about lines or aesthetics, it's harassment. "It ends now," I said, making sure my tone left no room for debate. He promised it wouldn't happen again, but you know how these things go when a man like that smiles, you count your fingers afterward. Next thing I know, I'm hauled into a county board meeting. Roberts, the chair, waves an anonymous complaint in my face, accusing me of abusing my power to intimidate private citizens. It's all Vance using politics to bury me under paperwork. They're talking about launching an ethics investigation, Roberts warned. But I could see the writing on the wall. Vance wanted me tied up helpless. So I called Jenna, told her we couldn't use official channels anymore, not without it looking like payback. She started digging deeper, looking for something Vance didn't want found. For a week, nothing but brick walls, until she called late one night, voice electric. "You're not just sitting on land," she said. "You're the bullseye." Turns out Vance had been buying up water rights, mineral rights, everything in a perfect circle with my 40 acres dead in the middle. Why? That's what got me. I called in a favor from an old surveyor friend, full workup, ground penetrating radar, everything. When the report finally landed, I thought I'd lost it. Pages of geology mumbo-jumbo until the last bit: significant subterranean anomaly at 75 feet, artificial origin. My father's cabin was built right over something big and secret, and Vance, he wasn't just buying land, he was fortifying whatever was under my home. I knew I couldn't trust the system. Vance had allies' influence, and I was already under a cloud of suspicion. But guys like him are cocky. They'd come for me, try to force my hand. So I got ready, barricaded the windows, checked my dad's rifle, called Jenna to stage the tactical team nearby, told her the code the nightingale is singing. Then I waited. That night the power cut out. Silence except for a twig snapping outside a diversion. I saw shadows, moving professionals flanking the cabin. They hit the doors and windows at once, first with pry bars, then bullets. I fired back, using every inch of the place I'd grown up in, every creak and blind spot. Caught one of them through the window, dropped another in the kitchen, but I took a bullet through my arm. Hot pain. But nothing that'd slow me down. Then Vance showed up himself, stepping out of a car like a Bond villain, megaphone in hand, trying to reason with me. "You could have sold. Now look at this mess," he said, talking about a masterpiece of Cold War engineering beneath my feet, the perfect haven for his clients when the world burns. He gave the order to breach, thinking he had me. But as his men hit the porch, red and blue lights tore through the woods, my team sirens screaming, floodlights everywhere. SWAT rushed the cabin, Jenna leading the charge, her face a mix of relief and fear. Vance and his men got cuffed, the bunker beneath, exposed for what it was. A fortress, a data haven, a place for the world's worst to hide their money, their secrets, and their sins. The FBI took over, turned my home into a crime scene. Weeks went by. The bunker, nicknamed the Nightingale's Nest, turned out to be a vault for the ultra-rich blackmail, corporate espionage, you name it. Vance wasn't a king, just a warden, and the whole community was a front, a buffer, so no one would ever stumble onto the truth. When they finally cleared my property, I went back, boarded windows, bullet holes in the logs, the smell of gunpowder and defeat everywhere. I swept up the mess, rebuilt what I could, drove out to Dad's grave, told him the whole story about the darkness that crept right up to our door, how I almost walked away but couldn't. "You never ran," I told him, "so I won't either." That's how I ended up running for sheriff again, more fired up than I'd been in years. Fixed up the cabin, replaced the last broken logs, tried to believe it was over. Vance rotted in Supermax. His network was in shambles. But you want to know the truth? Sometimes you win a fight, but you don't win the war. One night, phone rings, secure line DC number. Sheriff O'Connell says the voice I'm calling is a courtesy. "You've made powerful enemies. To them, you're not a hero, you're an expensive problem." He didn't have to say it twice. I knew right then that my name wasn't just on a ballot. It was on another list, one you never want to be on. So you tell me, was I right or wrong to stand my ground? What would you do if the shadows came for your home, your family's legacy, the one place you thought the world couldn't touch? Share your thoughts down below, because sometimes the line between justice and survival is the only thing holding the darkness back.